Water is Earth's most precious resource. Countries across the world have gone to war just to ensure adequate access to water for their citizens. While Coloradans have yet to take up arms, the question of water rights remains a key issue for the Rocky Mountain State.
The combination of high altitude, arid climate, and population growth means that for Colorado, the questions of who has to access the water, why they deserve that access, and how much water they get are increasingly difficult to answer. Farmers along the Front Range look to the growth of cities like Fort Collins, Denver, and Colorado Springs as a sign that their access to an increasingly scarce resource is diminishing. At the same time, city councils see their populations increasing and go to desperate lengths to secure water for their growing communities.
Compounding these problems, Colorado's position at the top of the Rocky Mountains means that its neighboring states, and in many cases, their neighbors as well, depend on the runoff from Colorado's most precious commodity, snow, to ensure their own citizens' access to water. As Colorado's water consumption reaches the limits of its allotments under interstate compacts and treaties, intensive water management will become even more critical. The water that flows out of faucets and irrigation sprinklers begins its journeys high above in the peaks of Colorado's Rockies. In late spring and early summer, snow accumulated over the winter begins to melt and make its way into Colorado's rivers. 70% of Colorado's water is supplied by the snowpack, but climate change threatens this vital source.
A report released this year by the Colorado Water Conservation Board projects that temperatures across Colorado will climb by at least 2.5 degrees Fahrenheit in the next 35 years. The warmer temperatures will perpetrate the earlier and earlier melting of the snowpack. This results in more spring floods and intense erosion, creating a strain for farmers and other users who draw water directly from the river. The board's hydrology models also suggest a lower stream flow by 2050, especially in the southwestern part of the state. The evolving climate situation often pits farmers against municipalities over securing their respective water needs. Jose Pachenko provides a small picture example of a bigger picture problem. Jose is a farmer who lived in Colorado for nearly a full climate cycle and has personally felt the impact of urban sprawl and changes in the water supply over the past 25 years.
I moved out to the area in 1987 and effectively have been growing alfalfa and hay since then in that area.
The situation in Colorado has the makings of a perfect storm of circumstances. People are flocking in droves to Colorado at rates we haven't seen in a century. The increase in the urban demand for water is in competition with the constant need for large amounts of water in the agricultural sector, with both sides depending on water supply with huge year-to-year variability.
Josh Nims is an official in the Westminster Public Works Department's Water Resources Group, and had this to say about the municipal's water operations. We always plan conservatively with the water supply for our municipality. With predictions of a drought next year, we have been proactive in securing a robust water supply. Thankfully, we have reliable senior water rights that guarantee us an adequate amount of water for our current needs. Knowing that our demand will likely rise in order to meet the needs of our growing number of citizens, we have the intention of developing more water supply through buying agricultural water in the surrounding areas and efficiently transferring it to our land to optimize our operations. Jose sees the effect from the farmer's
issue now, because as you develop properties, then the common irrigation canals that you use are starting to be looked at in potential, with the thought in mind, obviously, of potentially closing them. But that hasn't happened yet, and it probably will happen in the future, however.
Okay. The relationship between cities and farmers has become more tense as the growing proximity of cities to farmlands has had an adverse effect on farmers. Besides the logistical problems of having to drive farm machinery on streets and the lost capacity to cut down on weeds because of the ban on burning ditches, The encroachment of cities near farmlands has had an unfavorable effect on irrigation water quality.
That encroachment that kind of affects the quality of the water that is available to these farmers, because even though they still have designated canals or ditches that they run water in, there's a lot of urban flow, that kind of polluted flow from streets and other things that kind of gets into these canals and becomes a bit of a problem. As the climate changes, if there's less snowpack and less water available, then effectively, the farming practices then are impinged by that. You can dissociate and now have water rights that are transferable, which weren't really transferable initially. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what has happened with this, and as a result of that, then the urbanization of water happens a lot, and the urbanization of water has been happening for a long time, and the problem with that is that if you don't utilize the water locally, or you continue to use it where it was initially dedicated to, then you have a lot of desertification, right?
Faced with their own growing demands, cities have sought to acquire water rights in different places. The situation between Aurora and South Park is a prime example. In the 1950s, Aurora went out and bought the water rights from farmers around South Park, and then ditched the fields so they would be able to increase the runoff of those fields and bring more water to the city. But, as a consequence, this caused the desertification of those lands that have depended on that water.
Buenas tardes, Amarante. I'm gonna sell that place. This field's dying of thirst. Everybody else is sold out.
Did they say you could use the water?
It must have come loose when I kicked it. I ought to shut it off, huh? Maybe I'll sleep on it.
The unfavorable farming conditions has led many farmers to sell their water rights to cities and give up their livelihoods. Jose is one of only 2 remaining farmers in his area, and the future does not look bright for his operation.
Well, I think in 25 years, I suspect that probably is going to be urbanized completely. I think that the more acute time frame, which is probably within the next 5 years, is going to be a situation where it may not be possible to get the irrigation water to the area.
The answers to the questions of who has access to Colorado's water, why they deserve that access, and how much water they get must be carefully negotiated in the coming years. All positive and negative consequences to each party involved must be taken into account. Water rights will remain a key issue in Colorado for the foreseeable future as climate change continues to impact the state. Nobody knows if it's going to get wetter, drier, or stay the same in Colorado's mountains, but increasing temperatures, dust on the snowpack, and other climate change-related factors are likely to work together to reduce the total amount of water that Coloradans will be able to